Hello again everybody and a very warm welcome back to the channel. Today we continue the VATSIM tutorial series with the next episode covering regional variations. So flights into and out of, for example, the States or even China. So we're going to discuss a couple of differences that might be handy to bear in mind depending on where you're flying in the world. I hope you find it useful. As always, hit like and subscribe and share your tips and thoughts in the comments below too. We're currently at Memphis in Microsoft Flight Simulator. We're parked up on stand and we're thinking about flying a departure, and a lot of flights in and around the States, especially those larger airports, can be quite complex. So how do you simplify them, especially if you're flying on Unicom? What do you need to do for something like the Vancouver departure, or here at Memphis, the Elvis 4 departure? It's quite complicated, or looks complicated to begin with. And you'll notice it's not like a typical departure like this that gives you nice, clear guidance, allows you to fly on LNAV straight away to head out on your particular routing. This one requires a little bit more work. And why? Because if we zoom in on the charts to have a bit more of a closer look, we're using Navigraph to make the point of this example today. Depending on the runway in use and our direction of flight, we have to use heading mode or hand fly the first bit of the departure. If we're on Unicom, then what I would advise you do is take off, fly that initial climb out, and then begin a turn after a couple of miles out to your particular direction of travel. So if we were going to fly the West 5 departure, but we'd departed on one of the southerly runways, so we were initially flying 180 degrees, I'd turn right and I would fly round the compass, so heading south initially, and I'll be turning right to a westerly direction to then come back on ourselves on the West 4 or West 5 departure, whatever it might be. And you would then vector yourselves initially to the outbound radial for the Memphis VOR in relation to this. That's what these little grey lines are. And then you would fly out towards the particular waypoint that you were going to use on your route. As you can see here, the insets are really helpful on some of the charts. Memphis is one of those airports that gives you a little bit more resistance. And if you're in a turbojet aircraft here, it tells you the initial climb is going to be runway heading initially, before then committing to your turn. But there are some examples, like the rightmost runway as we're looking at it at the moment. Initially you fly out to 1 DME and then you turn right slightly to 162 degrees before then commencing your turn. So all the information tends to be on the charts. Have a good look at them beforehand to brief yourself prior to any departure. Another one, a good example, is the O'Hare 7 departure at Chicago. As you can see, it doesn't really give you any information at all. So to someone who isn't used to this departure, it could be a bit of a head scratching moment, a little bit tricky it seems, but if you understand the principles, it's actually quite simple. So in effect, you want to read the bit at the very bottom right here. So initial climb, top altitude of 5,000 feet. And then it says all aircraft expect radar vectors to first en route navigate or fix. Expect clearance to requested altitude or flight level 10 minutes after departure. So you would fly your departure runway heading for a couple of miles or so, and then when you feel suitable to do so, you would head off towards whatever waypoint you were going to fly towards. So for example, you would then turn direct PECU, or you would turn direct Mikey, and then you're on your way. Talking about clearance to requested altitudes 10 minutes after departure, as it mentioned at the bottom of the charts there, it brings us on to another really useful point. When you get your clearance in the States, what you tend to get is, for example, clear to Boston Logan via the O'Hare 7 departure. Expect flight level 350 10 minutes after departure. And that is the controller saying to you that after 10 minutes, you can expect to be near to your cruise altitude effectively. Keep it simple, that's basically what it means. Moving on to arrivals then, to discuss that a little bit more in depth. In America, certainly for the bigger international airports, the stars can reach over hundreds of miles of arrivals into those airports. So another example here being the Memphis Plus 3 RNAV arrival. Depending on your transitions, you would be flying in potentially for over 100, 150 nautical miles before you are near the airfield and vectoring into final approach. So the controllers most often will give you, for descent, a comment like descend via the star, which means if we were, for example, flying in via the Pocket City transition for the Bluz 3, we would be looking at all of these and we would ensure ourselves automatically that we are at KSOT at 290 knots at or above flight level 240. So we would make sure that we adhere to all the constraints along the routing for the star. We wouldn't be told for each one of these to step down like you would, for example, in the UK. You would just be given descend with the star and you'll be expected to follow all of these constraints, both speed and altitude, all the way through your star, because the controller then sequences you, assuming you're flying to all of these really accurately. So we would then go KSOT at 290 knots, flight level 240 at or above, to speaker between 14,000 feet and flight level 230 at 290 knots, Bluz at 280 knots at or below flight level 230, and then another example here, Copen, we would have to be at 230 knots at 10,000 feet if we're landing south on the runways 9, 18 left, centre right, or 27. And then a little comment saying expect radar vectors to final approach course after Copen. So at that point, we would be told leave Copen heading 270 degrees, for example, expect ILS runway 18 left. And then in we go. So we thought about the States. That includes Canada. What about countries that use meters then for altitude? China is one of those, a huge area of land, massive country, massive airspace to fly around, and they use meters for flying along. So if we were to look at, say, for example, Beijing Airport, and we were to look at an example departure out of Beijing, you will see a lot of the time on the charts, certainly with the Jefferson charts via Navigraph, you get flight level conversions into meters, and you get feet to meter conversion as well with QNH. So all the altitudes are in meters, and you've got to bear that in mind. Now, the easy way to deal with this, although it does require a little bit of recalculation in your brain, is to find the button on the aircraft which allows you to change your altitude to meters. So on the 737-800, the PMDG 737NG series Microsoft Flight Simulator, for example, it's just here to the left of the big autopilot panel here where you've got your minimums and you set your pressure altitudes and things as well. So by clicking that, if we look down at the bottom here, it would then give you an additional display of meters for both your current altitude, which would be 17 meters, and also the one that you've set as a target, which would be 3,048 meters, equating to 10,000 feet. Now, depending on whatever aircraft you might be flying, you might have to look around for that meters switch in order to toggle that on or off. And that's it. Some of the regional variations that you might encounter when flying on the VATSIM network. A lot of the information is in the charts, so do study the charts, and if you've got something like Navigraph's Ultimate subscription with charts included, you will find it is a lot easier to find the information you're looking for. I hope you found it useful anyway. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. Check out all my other VATSIM tutorials. Thanks for watching. Take care.